Welcome to another episode of Dog Pound Bear Down with Turban Brothers. I am Binny with your co-host Yogi. Happy birthday, Yogi. Let me get the wishes to you first. How are you feeling after Baltimore game, huh? You finally got to see Shadour a little bit, a glimpse of him.
Yeah, it was a interesting game, interesting situation for him to come into. I think we had actually even talked about like most likely Dylan, given his size, frame, he's gonna get. We were thinking smaller injuries, so for him to have that concussion, and then basically it seemed like they went into halftime, and then Shadur came out at halftime
Yeah.
versus had he been hurt on second down and Shador would have came in on third down, that would have changed things quite a bit. So it's interesting the way it went down because he had the chance to like be in there at halftime, talk to, Stefanski and Tommy Reese and get prepped. But he came out and it was clear it was very different energy in that stadium, very different reaction from the players. And I think that by itself, at least right now, tells me that if I put that game aside, Shador should get all of the starts the rest of the year now.
Yeah.
And I say that because I originally didn't want him to play. Like I wanted him to just sit this year, sort of redshirt it. But now that he's been out there, we saw how the players reacted. We've seen how the fans react. What's there to lose? Put him out there, let him play. Initial reaction is that was very unexpected, how he went out and got a chance to play. And then regardless of the outcome, it showed me that at least from the perspective of like, are his teammates behind him and are the fans behind him? It's an absolute yes. So I'm hoping he gets every start from here on out so we get to find out what Shadur is really about. What do you think about the game?
I 100% agree with you. Well, initially when the game started, I wasn't that much into it because I had an idea what I'm getting on offense. I was more excited to see Myles Garrett put in a show, which he did. Shout out to Myles Garrett first of all, getting 4 sacks. So it was amazing game by him. But when Shadur came in, the whole stadium was electric. It reminded me of Baker Mayfield coming in against Jets when Tyler Taylor went down, right? So initially the game was I was going through the motions. I was like, all right, this is another game where we're going to put subpar offense out there, and which eventually happened, right? You see Dylan completing short yardage passes. Whole half he played, he had 70 yards or so. Correct me if I'm wrong, it's somewhere around there. He had a high percentage, 70% completions, but again, it was the same thing I've seen in the past. So there's nothing new he brought to the table, or this game brought to the table. Our defense was just like other games, lights out, harassing Lamar, and our offense wasn't clicking. Then the second they made the switch, I was like, all right, I sat up and started paying more attention to the game. Again, started off electric. He came in, completed first pass. His wrist up was right off the bat. Then kind of went off rail. Like I could see he wasn't ready for the moment. And I don't blame him because it's his first game where he's coming in the middle of it. It wasn't, he had a notion of it. And just coming in the middle of it, he seemed like, okay, yes, I'm ready for it. But his lack of reps kind of showed up, right?
It did.
Not having reps, it seemed like he didn't know, didn't have the communication with his wide receivers. So I kind of got that picture. But again, at the end of the game, the way he was going on for that game-winning drive, it looked like he was ready for the moment. Again, he seemed like a baller, but who's not ready yet? So it wasn't great play by him, but his body language looked he was ready for the occasion. And he seemed like he needs a lot of reps. And again, Stefanski after the game acknowledged that he hasn't been getting any reps because to a certain extent, it makes sense, right? You have two rookies. You can't go like, okay, I'm going to split in half because both of them have a big learning curve. So I get that. But again, he didn't had any scouting team reps or anything. He's just out there, taking mental reps, which is fine. But again, I was excited to see him out on the field, completing some pass. And at the end of the game, the way he led that drive, regardless they weren't pressuring him as much, blitzing him as much, it seemed like breath of fresh air that we were taking shots downfield. That was something which I was like, all right, I can take that. Don't worry about it's intercepted. Don't worry about his incompletion. At least I can see you have a chutzpah to actually go take shots downfield, which has been missing in this offense, right? So that was my take from the first 2 quarters of him playing for the Browns. So far it's been not so great from playing standpoint of view, but at the same time, when you see his attitude, you see his demeanor, it looks like, you know what, he has something there. You know what, we just maybe have to bring it out of him. Maybe there's a game plan we have to build around him. Maybe too early. And I agree with you. Initially, wanted him to have redshirt year where he's not playing as much or at all, learning behind Flacco. Well, that plan went out. That plan derailed after we traded him. But yeah, this year I didn't want him to make a play, but now he is on the field. Might as well play him the remaining 7, 8 games, right? See what we have in him because again, a draft is coming up next year. Either we have something in him or we don't. We find out and move on because it's a very, very critical draft coming up next year. So we want to know what we have in our quarterbacks. So that's my initial take on him. He didn't do that great, but I felt like his demeanor, his attitude, he was ready for the challenge.
Yeah, something I'll call out is like if we take a look at the stats from the game, right? A couple of things. I mentioned him coming out at halftime and sort of having that ability to be there with the team in in the locker room as they prepped. One of the things for me was I think a lot of us forgot by the end of the game that the tackles were injured and they were having to rotate a bunch of guys around. And then if you heard Wyatt Teller this week, he was sort of, reiterating the like, hey, sort of first time hearing him back there, trying to understand whether he knew what adjustments to make and what hots to call for. So that has to be taken into account, ultimately. He worked with the makeshift offensive line. They were sending the house, right? They were in zero most of the time. So basically, showing 8 folks and sending 7 at a minimum right at them. As all of that went down, I think my initial reaction changed. It definitely did as I looked back on like the situation he was in, what he was faced with. I looked at the yards that Judkins had. I looked at how Dylan was doing before that. I mean, to your point, we sort of had an expectation of the team and like how they might play against the Ravens. And even though we were winning, essentially, it really wasn't because we had like this stellar offensive performance with Gabriel. In the end, I think you and I, the one disagreement we might, like went back and forth on was whether he threw a couple of really good balls or whether or not they were okay, like okay balls. But where we had agreements, like the Fannin throw, right? Like that was just a clear, excellent throw, right? Like that's what we want to see from him. Last play of the game, regardless of whether the throw to the corner was good to Gage, once we saw the replays, we knew like really what he should have done was taking that first down with Juden. But it's his first game, right? So all of that's I think in the wash at this point. What we really have to take going forward is that he went into the game with a ton of energy. The team showed it. The fans showed it. He played with it. Now, what I want to see is Baker took a long time to settle his nerves. He really did. If you remember, he would come into games and he'd be throwing rockets, right? First drive, there'd be overthrows and heaters that the receivers couldn't catch. That was also because of the energy, right?
Yeah.
And I don't blame him. Like a player really wants to prove himself. And Baker was one of those guys too. So even though Baker was drafted where he should have been drafted, he still was a chip on his shoulder guy. I can only imagine what he felt like coming to Cleveland because, essentially he went from high school to 2 legitimate football programs in college to essentially the worst team at the time in the NFL. So I want to see how Shadour handles that. And then I'll also say this, looking at the game, you mentioned him not having a chance to rep with the ones. He also really didn't have a chance to run through like a script. And those are sort of your layups, right? Like in the beginning of a game, like basketball coaches will often draw up a few plays that are like, hey, these are the fundamentals of basketball. You end up with the easy shot, high percentage shot, and that gets you rolling, right? So without going to the next game just yet, looking back on this game, that was something else that I like once I settled on like, okay, let's just let that game go. I was reminded that, hey, you know, another thing, he really didn't have those. He didn't have those initial scripted plays. And who knows? Because we've seen with Stefanski's offense, they often look good in those scripted plays. And then it goes way downhill from there.
Yep.
Who knows if he's the type of quarterback where those scripted plays are enough, just from a confidence perspective, that allows him to put together a second drive and a third drive, right? And again, we're not expecting like a Colts like situation where you're going to punt once in like 4 games or whatever. I'm not expecting that. But I would love for them to put 2 consecutive drives together, and one's a touchdown and one's a field goal.
Yep.
Like, that would be completely different than the experience we've had all year. So he didn't have a chance to do that because he didn't have that section of the game. Dylan did. If you look at it, that's where Dylan scored. So that's another thing that I look at. So yeah, I think this game, you know, at the end of it, I had a lot of comments. A lot of us had comments about like, look at the stat line at the end of the day. Look at some of the missed throws. Look at that early interception that really looked bad. He had some missed throws. And then, you know, within a couple of days, I think everyone was like, okay, that's behind us. There were a lot of reasons for that. Now there's no excuses. Like going forward, he is what he is. And my hope is, even if he doesn't play well, we don't see Dylan Gabriel again this season. You know, so that's my hope, at least coming out of the game. Like, that's the end of the Dylan Gabriel experiment.
Yeah, I hope so too. I don't feel like Brown's brass is going to follow logic. They usually tend not to. So I have a feeling if he has a bad game, Dylan comes out protocol, they might put him back in. But I'm hoping Shadour shows, you know, grit in next game, some playmaking ability. He's not, again, as you mentioned, there are no excuses. You just pulled up the schedule on the screen. He has some very, very easy up and coming games. Like if you look at it, it's Oakland Raiders, San Francisco, who's been decimated with injuries. Then you have Titans, and then you play Bears. So you have an easy path. I'm not saying like I'm trying to put him under the fire or make excuses for him. Yes, he didn't had initially all the reps, but now you have a week of practice. Again, the first game, I throw it out. I go like, yeah, I want to see how you handle it. What's your body language? Is the occasion too big for you, right? Can you take those shots deep? Right now, that's over. I see it. I see what you can do. I see you can complete some passes. I see you sometimes run for your life, things you have to correct here and there. Because again, if you keep doing that, you're going to be out of NFL soon. You can't take 20-yard sacks or 12-yard sacks. You have to get rid of the ball. But that could be corrected. Don't get me wrong, that could be corrected. But what I see, the attitude, I see your demeanor. You're ready for the occasion. Now I want you to build up on it. Take your shots. Don't worry about it. You're gonna fail. Be like Baker, to be honest. Have the energy, because one thing I miss on this offense is energy. When Baker was there, whether it's for good or bad, he had the energy. He threw some rockets. He wanted to take on the defenses. He wanted to take on his own wide receiver, throw it so fast that they couldn't even catch him, right? You're right. He needs to calm that energy. As you mentioned, Wyatt Teller said, we never heard his cadence before. And when he came off, there was an energy which the only time they have felt was with Baker. He wasn't a robotic quarterback. Okay, do this, be calm. Everybody wants to be Tom Brady. We are calm and collect. I get it. Not everybody's Tom Brady. Everybody wants Belichick. Not everybody's Belichick. That's how it is. The great ones are only one or few, and it's hard to replicate them. You should be who you are. And when you are who you are, the success comes to you easier than trying to portray. Like many times people want to be Michael Jordan. He is who he is. If you want to be him, it's going to be harder for you. If you be who you are, you could be Kobe, you could be LeBron, you could be anybody, and you still carve your own path. So what I want to see from him going forward in the next game is take those chances. Hey, don't take dumb sacks. Don't run 20 yards back. You make mistakes, it's all right. Everybody makes mistakes. You are a rookie. Don't dink and dunk. Yeah, take what defense gives you, complete a screen pass, go for your pressure valve, complete that pass. But if there's a chance deep down, you don't want to come back and go like, I wish I would have done that, because you might not get that chance again, right? Dylan is still waiting. He's another rookie favored by Browns. Obviously, he's top 100 pick. So he will always have the backing of the Browns than Shadour. fifth round pick, even though he was highly touted out of the draft. But what I want him to do is if he goes on to the next game, you know what? Take your chances. You see something, don't hold back. Don't throw in triple coverage. I get that. But if there's something you see, take your chances because you're an accurate passer. You have the arm talent. The only thing which you have alluded to in the past multiple times when you graded him out of the draft was him taking sacks because he wants to be superhero. And I can see that in a team Colorado, you're playing against big wigs. You want to be the superhero. You want to be that guy like Patrick Mahomes, creates nothing out of create something out of nothing, right? Be the Houdini, escape the pocket. But in pros, you won't have that chance because
Yeah.
everybody who's lining up against you was drafted and was probably the prospect coming out of high school, college, and even in NFL draft. So you're not going to outrun him. So
And what I
take,
was
yeah,
what I
go
was
ahead.
hoping was like this week,
Yeah,
as he played against the defense, right, with the ones, two things. One, I hope it built his confidence that, like, hey, I've already taken hits in the game. Now I'm in here with the ones. I'm getting the practice I was looking for. The other is I hope I don't know. I didn't read anything about this. I only saw clips of his first practice and then I didn't see anything after that. But I hope they picked him off. I hope they like caused some fumbles. I hope they pressured him. And more than anything, I hope what they said was, we've got this. Like,
yeah,
you don't have to be the hero. We, on this side of the ball, will take care of the game.
yeah.
We will control it. So if you need to throw the ball away, throw the ball away,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
And we have the kind of corners where it's like they could teach them that lesson pretty easy
Mm-hmm.
on the like, this isn't college anymore. You can't throw that ball you threw against the sideline and miss the receiver because we will run straight down the sideline and, turn it into a pick six. So I didn't hear anything, but I'm hoping that the defense was like, don't worry about this. Like we are that good that we should take some of the pressure off of you by controlling the score. And think about it, Geno's had a terrible year for the
Yeah,
Raiders. So I'm hoping Miles coming off of multiple games with multiple sacks now and huge numbers, right? 4 sacks, right? Like in this last one, he's had a game of 2. He's had a game of, I think it was either 4 or 5 before that as well. So, I mean, let them do their job. And the other part is, I hope they did hit him or like, you know what I mean? Like at least push him in practice because Miles will do that even with quarterbacks in the game. If you notice, like if he runs the ring and the guy's already thrown the ball, like he'll just pat him on the back, like
yeah.
to let him know, like, hey, I was right here.
Mm-hmm.
Or like one more second,
Yeah,
I would have knocked you out.
yeah,
I hope they did a little bit of that so he knows like running backwards 15 yards, not a good idea. Escaping the pocket is only good if you know where you're going to plant and get rid of the ball, or
yep.
you know where you're going, you're going to make a one last look downfield with and keeping your eyes downfield, and then you're going to run.
Yep.
Because anything else is going to lead to somebody just absolutely clobbering you. And they have Max Crosby. So they don't have
Yep.
a lot going for them, Raiders, but Max is a beast. And, I can't remember which player said it, but one of the players was talking about the fact that Max plays a position where usually you only play 80% of the plays. But Max plays 90 or 95% of every game for the plays that he should be in, which tells you, like, he's on the field every package, and he's like, I'm not coming off. I want another chance. Even if it's just 4 more chances, 5 more chances in a game, he wants those chances to get to the quarterback. So I'm hoping this week, like, they could get into his head one thing, which would be don't force anything.
And
if you throw a pick on a deep ball, it's fine.
And you're right on point because another thing I noticed in the last game is he got blitz on every play. And I kind of like that. This welcome to NFL. And you want to have that right off the bat that you first start because now you have seen blitz coming at you over and over. And now you start thinking, hey, if I don't, I'm going to get crushed. Even the pick he threw, he got hit. He stood in the pocket. I don't know. Again, I still need to break down that film, why he threw the pick. It was miscommunication because there was no receiver. The receiver was on the going left and he was throwing to the right. Maybe that's lack of reps, not knowing where he's going to break, right or left. Again, that's something
It looked
comes
like
with
an errant.
cadence.
It honestly looked like an errant pass. It
Yeah.
looked like he read where the receiver was going,
Yeah.
but he had to throw the ball and lean into it into a way.
Yeah.
Because they say your foot is what if you point your foot in a certain direction,
Yeah.
when you go to
That's
throw
where
a
to throw it.
football, That's what it is. So
Exactly.
he had to like step into the throw. So it looked like he lost his fundamentals just
Yeah.
in that like split second
Yeah.
trying to get the ball out. And again, I think he was super hyped up coming into the game because if you noticed, he came in and it was really loud. Wyatt Teller mentioned this as well. He was like, I told him you need to tell the crowd to quiet down because we can't hear the play.
Yeah.
And he does the wrist thing.
So,
Obviously, the crowd gets louder. So he's like, so he did the
not
opposite
not what
of
I intended.
yeah, he's like he sort of did the opposite of what my advice was, which is like because only the quarterback can really be like, "Hey,"
Yeah.
right?
Calm
And
down.
especially with it being Shadour,
Yeah.
all eyes were on him anyways.
Yeah.
But Wyatt was like, it was his moment. Like, I get it,
Yeah.
but that he's that's where he's got to learn. So I think he was just hyped up, came
Yeah.
in, did the opposite. So that's another component of it, right? Which
Yeah.
is you haven't been in an NFL game.
Yeah.
And we know college games are huge. They pack stadiums. They have 100,000 seat stadiums. They get loud.
Yeah.
So they have all of those dynamics.
Yeah.
But for him, it was his first NFL game.
And welcome to
And yeah, and in every way, sound, reaction to the crowd, reaction to the defense. And you know what happens when the opposing crowd gets really loud and the other team is like, we are better than you on paper
yeah.
and in the standings? They get more upset. Now the crowd just cast a check for you,
Yeah.
right? They wrote a check for you, sorry, that you
Yeah.
got to cash. Right. And so that's where I think like Shadour can come in this week with all of that. Like I did, I survived it. I've
Yeah.
seen it. I got hit. I got hit multiple times by
True.
real
That's what I meant. Yep.
like Roquan and like guys that are not like second, third team like tier players. These are legit like all pro, Pro Bowl player. Kyle Hamilton whipped him.
Yep.
So I mean, these are top tier players. He's fine. He got back up.
And repetition, you mean like, you're talking about cadence repetition, like where you're throwing the ball, you're getting reps with the first one. You got the reps with the defensive line blitzing you all the time.
Yep.
That's something, a mental clock you get in your head is, okay, first, I can outrun him because last 2 times I did, even though one of the slide move was really effective where he had an open void in the backup bond at the back of the end zone, which he missed. But that move, shifty move, swaying the defense that way and moving away was pretty good. But again, everything what Baltimore did was helped him build for Raiders game because now you know what to anticipate when they blitz, how to read blitz. Because if you can't read the blitz, you're going to get popped. You're going to get lit up to a point where it's going to hurt. So be ready, throw the ball away, or you get. So everything that have happened kind of was his welcome to NFL. Learn this thing as fast as you can to survive because everybody's going to do that. Book is out on you. They know you take sacks. They're going to blitz you. Repetition on those blitz, like you see it coming over and over and over again, it kind of helps you mentally is like, okay, now I can build on it. Now I know I see zero blitz, what to do. Now I know this guy's blitzing and then dropping back in coverage, what you need to do. Because I felt like after those blitz at the last half, when he had time and he settled his feet down, he was pretty accurate. One pass to Fanning, which was dropped, I think should have been caught. Right. And then the other pass was down low, which should have been caught as well. I don't know if it was Judy or Tillman. I can't remember. But even look at Judy, the catch he made and the yards he fought for after the slide move and then fighting for the yards. You didn't see that all year long from Judy. Now he's like putting his body on the line. So you see the pep and step for him as well once the Shadour is on the field. So again, the excitement is there. And I feel like I'm one of those people who didn't want him to get drafted. Maybe we like fallen heroes to rise back up, and go for the glory. Maybe I'm, you know, prisoner of the moment, and sometimes we all fall in that place. Like, okay, he has fallen down the draft board. Now I want him to write a story. Maybe it's that. But initially, I wasn't a fan of him. I thought in NFL, I mean, in college football, he held the ball too long, as you mentioned in the past, and Hunter bailed him out multiple times. But now I see it in NFL. I want him to succeed, not for Brown's sake, but I see what he has gone through all year long with not being dropped to fifth round and then being the fourth quarterback, working his way all the way back to one. I see the struggle he has gone through. He's been humbled a lot, I believe. But now I want him to have his success story, and he has the arm talent. He is just making sure, reading the defense and getting rid of the ball, right? Those are the few things I hope he corrects because I see the talent in him. I see the arm talent, I see the accuracy, and I see as the game progressed, as he calmed down and get his legs under him, and he was making really, really good plays, maybe going for the juggler, which I haven't seen Browns quarterback go for since Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I was gonna call out on the arm talent. Something that he showed in this game that teams had talked about, like pre-draft, is the fact that he might be one of those quarterbacks that we used to talk about that has a lot of touch on a pass and can really place a pass in the right spot. But he's just not like it doesn't. He doesn't jump off the screen because he doesn't throw heaters. He's not going to throw Baker, 60-mile-per-hour fastball right down the middle of the field and like peg somebody in the back of the head. He's also not Josh Allen. He's not going to throw a 70-yard bomb down the sideline. He's not a Michael Vick kind of guy, right? Where he can throw off his back foot and off platform and just throw, not only deep, but with this perfect spiral. Because you see, he throws a lot of knuckleballs too, right? Where you'll see the end of like the
The
ball,
ball, yeah,
then
wobbly, yeah.
it's instead of just spiraling, it
Yeah,
actually will
not a
tip.
tight spiral. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a little
it'll tip.
wobbly.
And that's another thing. Like when you throw a deep ball, again, having played receiver for a long time, you expect the tip of the ball to be down on a
Mhm,
deep ball. And if it's not, it should only be because it's on a line. Like it's a
mhm.
deep ball, but it is a laser, like on a line throw. And you even saw that like on his deeper throw, which looking back even at that throw, it shows. Like he can
Mm,
throw it into a spot.
mm.
Now it is up to him to figure out his receivers, size, movement, all that. And you mentioned Judy. I wonder because Judy had a really weird interview this week
Yeah.
where he just seemed I don't know if he
Oh,
was
yeah.
aloof
I had
or
no
what it
idea.
was. Yeah, something was up. I almost wonder. Judy's such a me person, and a lot of receivers are, but him in particular, right?
Yeah.
And he's taken a lot of flack this year because he's leading the league in drops. So, and he's done that before. So it's not his
Yeah.
first season doing that. So I wonder if one of the things they need to do is in that early script, those first 15, just throw Judy a quick pat. Like, you know how Philly did with AJ Brown this week, right? They're like, we're just going to force a couple throws in there. They're
Yep.
short, they're screens, they're low risk. Just get the ball in his hands, get his confidence back up. And I say that because if they do that and he starts buying in, to your point, he seemed way more bought in last game, at least. Then I think it changes the whole demeanor of the offense, right? It really does because he is our number one, whether we like it or not.
Yep.
Now, is he a true number one? That's debatable. But for the Cleveland Browns, he's the number one, and that's by a lot. There is
Yep.
not a close number two receiver on the team. So getting him involved, getting the confidence of the offense up, I think that'll go a really long way against the Raiders.
I see that with Tommy Rees since he has taken over the offensive coordinator. He is pressing towards Judy. He wants to get him involved. I see the targets jumping up. He's like, and that's what you got to do. You would know you played receiver in the past. Right? They want the ball. They
Yeah.
want to make the play. The more targets they have, yeah. I've seen the other day I was watching Jamar Chase, drop an easy catch. I've seen, and he probably has one or two drops per game, but he has 15 targets. So if he has two or three drops, let's say, and he caught 10, that's 100 yards right there. They're all going to drop. Not everybody's perfect. And we do give Judy a lot of flack, but again, we don't have the room for error on our team because if it's dropped, that's a drive killer for us.
It
With
is.
Jamar Chase, yeah, you drop it once time, you throw it back at him, he will catch that 9 out of 10 times, right? I see that with Tommy Rees. I've seen that one, he keeps pressing for his number one to make sure he's involved. And second, I also see we don't abandon run. What we did that with Kevin Stefanski. I saw that, and again, I didn't know the theory behind it. As long Dylan Gabriel was in the game, they never abandoned the run. The second Shadour came in, it was pass, 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 pass. And again, there were a lot of guardrails for Dylan. And correct me if I'm wrong, the second Shadour, and even in the preseason game, he was taking shots. And I don't know that's by design or they trust him or they want to see what they have in him. I don't know. There could be conspiracy theories that they want to protect Dylan Gabriel not to throw
I
interceptions
think
or so?
honestly, I think it's skill. They look
Yeah.
at what they're more skilled at. Dylan is definitely the kind of guy Stefanski is going to like more because you can teach him to not throw interceptions. If you
Yeah.
look at it, he hasn't thrown that many interceptions.
Yeah.
He also has thrown very few like completed passes over 20 yards.
Yeah.
So I think they look at the skill of it, which is Dylan is going to make some bad throws. Shadour is going to make some bad throws. But Dylan, if they control how open the offense is, he won't throw any interceptions.
Yeah.
Trade off being I think, if they control the offense in that way with Shadour, he will then tuck the ball and either like roll out and throw, which is going to be an off platform throw, high risk. And now you don't even have the upside of the touchdown
Yeah.
because you were not calling those big plays.
Yeah.
If you saw the end of the game, and this is before the Gage throw, they ran 2 plays in a row that were the second closest play to a Hail Mary. It's pretty wild to do that, right? Where you run like 2 goes on the side, you have like a deep curl on one side and like a 10 or 15 yard out on the other side. And then they did that 2 plays in a row. They ran that type of pass play. And I think they did that because they were just like, hey, with the risk that we have, the type of skill that Shadour has, either he lets it rip or he runs. And not
Yeah.
that he's a running quarterback, he's not. But if they've sent those guys 20 yards down the field, he doesn't have to be a running quarterback.
Yeah.
He can just go run for 8 or 9 yards and slide, and he's good. And what he's not Jackson Dart.
Yeah.
He's not going to lean forward, put his head down. He broke his back. Shadour broke his back in college, right? And so he has every reason in the world to actually slide and get out of bounds. And Dion is famous for the business decision comment,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that ultimately came down to like, they don't pay me to tackle. And so again, the assumption is, right, Shadour's not going to be like, all right, I'm going to go Cam Scattaboo on you and like try to bulldoze you. And he's not going to go Jackson Dart on you and think he's tougher than he really is as a quarterback. He's going to slide down. So I think it's a skill thing. Personally, I don't buy into the conspiracy theories other than the conspiracy theory that's just on the whole, they did not want to draft Sanders.
Yeah.
And that's not their guy. But
Yeah.
now that he's out there, I think the reason we saw it change is because they were like, Dylan and Shadour are nothing alike. Dylan is Stefanski's type of guy, high efficiency guy, might not throw any interceptions if you really control him. Shadour is actually the opposite. If you want to score at all while throwing interceptions, you better let it rip. Like you couldn't run you couldn't have Jameis Winston back there running Dylan Gabriel's offense because then Jameis is still going to throw 4 interceptions and you're going to be like, we didn't get anything out of that, So, but you're right. There was a big, big difference in the way they called plays. I do hope they run more though. And that's sort of what we were talking about before the podcast today. I started to think about it and I was like, what if Tommy Rees says, all right, we've tried it your way. Like, Kevin, we tried it your way. But the only way I can slow this blitz down, which is guaranteed because they blitz rookies no matter who the rookie is.
Yeah.
And now they've seen Shadour take what he did during the Baltimore game. So they're going to bring it. An easy way to bring that level of pressure down, you can't just turn around and hand it off to Quinshon. They'll key on Quinshon and they'll just, it'll be tackle for loss after tackle for loss. But if you start running like an RPO with Shadour, because he's not small, that's another thing.
Sure.
He's not Dylan, right? Again, he doesn't want to take hits, but he's not small. He can handle taking a hit. He could then run that run pass option. And I think what they would tell him is like, we don't really want you sneaking it. So it's either or the hand off, right alongside you to the running back, or go up far enough to where the linebacker pulls down on you and throw it to the receiver. And that's why I think it actually works because then Reese could sell it and say like, hey, Fannon's your guy, obviously.
Yes.
You guys scouted him before the draft. He was an Ohio guy. Stefanski, the day Fannin got on campus, started talking about him. You've seen how many targets he has. Actually, when we started the season, Njoku was getting nothing. Yeah. He was getting like no targets at that point. Yeah. So I think it'd be an easy sell. I don't know if he will do that, if he's that confident yet and like stepping on toes, but I hope he is. Because I really think if they do that, that whole element has not been shown this year by the Browns. Yep. So now you can do something that the Raiders aren't at least don't have tape on, right? They would practice it against other teams, so they don't have tape on it with you. And it gives you the flexibility because that's more of the quarterback he is. And then what you can tell Shadour is like, hey, when we run our RPOs, you get to do that fun stuff where you run backwards and you learn
Yep.
like laterally and all that stuff. But all the other plays we run, you stay in the pocket. You either slide up
Yep.
or you take a Tom Brady like sidestep to get yourself just another second before you throw it.
No, percent. And I agree with you. And I don't want him to be Baker taking hits. I don't want him to be Dart taking hits. I don't want him to be out for the season. I want him to play smart. Like, he's athletic. People don't give him credit. He is athletic. He's not Lamar. He's not quick, but he can move in the pocket. He's not Tom Brady where he's like, or Joe
No,
Flacco
not
fixed
at
to a
all.
station. He can move. So we have seen that even though a third down he converted into first, he ran up the gut and got 5 yards and slid. So I'm happy with that. And one thing you hit on earlier is Kevin Stefanski's offense, right? It's a lot of dink and dunk, don't throw interception, but we have seen it for years now. We have seen with Watson. We have seen with, what's the name? Dylan Gabriel.
Yep.
You don't throw picks. Your picks are not, but you're getting 2 to 3 yards per attempt, maybe 4 yards. It's not going to get you anywhere. You're going to get field goals after field goals after field goals because they're going to stack up. You're going to complete high percentage, but not go anywhere. Your point total is going to be like less than 16 because, yeah, you're not throwing picks, but you're not trying to throw touchdowns either. You're completing this screen pass, which gets you 5 yards. Might as well run it at that point, right? What is a screen pass going to do when your running back is averaging 5 yards or 4 yards? So I think what you said earlier, yes, Tommy Rees should go like, hey, Kevin, we did it your way. We did dink and dunk. It hasn't gone anywhere. We are not throwing interceptions, but we are not throwing touchdowns. We're lowest in our point total. It's not going anywhere. Let's change it up. Let's take some deep shots so we can open up our run game. And I'm fine with him either doing RPOs or even being behind center because he's a pocket passer, which is the great thing about him in this system. Because if he becomes a pocket passer, you line up the running back behind him, and then the defense can tip, whether it's a pass or a run, right? If you run RPOs or whatsoever, your running back could be standing right next to you, kind of tip in your head what's happening next, right? But in this case, if he's under the center, you can run Stefanski's offense, but you can also take deep shots. With a robot quarterback where you're telling him and betting him in the brain that you cannot throw turnovers, I've seen that with Watson. His turnover wasn't that bad. Yes, it looked bad, but it wasn't that bad. He was like 19 touchdowns to 12 interceptions whatsoever. It should be lower. But again, he never took deep shots, and our offense was stagnant all the time. So I 100% agree with you. He should incorporate his deep throwing ability with little RPOs, with little runs, QB design runs. It's fine as long as he doesn't take a hit. Because nowadays, NFL, if you're threatening deep and your running back is taken out of count, the field is yours. Every quarterback runs. You see Allen, you see everybody. Allen is not that gifted. I mean, he's athletic, but he's not the fastest guy on the team. He can run, don't get me wrong. But I think so can Shadour. But you just have to be smart about it. And I 100% agree with you on that. So if they can incorporate most of Tommy Rees' offense with Stefanski, I'm fine with it.
Yeah,
But
and to back up your point, right? Like if we look at the stats, I mean, ultimately what you end up seeing is what we're looking at. This is the Browns' offense, right? And we talk about complementary football, and so you and I just talked about, and you just called it out. We are not throwing interceptions, but we're also not throwing touchdowns, and we're not racking up yards. And then if you look at our defense, on the flip side of it, ultimately what you end up seeing is that the Browns are able to, let me make sure we start with the passing actually. They're able to stop passing like teams.
yeah,
We have the best pass
pass
defense
offense, yep,
in the NFL.
defense.
So we have the second worst pass offense and we have the best pass defense. In addition to that, and that's where I actually jump to first, we are top 15 in rush defense. So that's not amazing. But if you remember, we used to complain all the time.
Yeah.
If only we could control the run, we would have the best defense in the league. Well, we have that now. So if we can keep the score low, have the offense doesn't have to jump up to here. We don't
Yeah.
need them to throw 300 yards a game.
Yeah.
But if they can be in the middle, get out of being like right at the bottom with these other teams, and look at the
Yeah.
teams suck down here generally, right?
Yeah.
The ones that don't, they have stout defenses and they have stellar run games. Philly's weird because they rely heavily on Hurts, right, for some of those yards, but it would just work really well together because we already have the defense that is the other side of that game plan. And so use it, use what you have. We know this is not like preseason. We're
Yeah.
not talking about game 3.
Yeah.
These stats we just looked at, that is 11 games under your belt, right? 10 for those that had buys and you know what I mean? But like that's a majority of the season. So you know what you have. The stats aren't lying. We talk about the eye in the sky doesn't lie. The tape doesn't lie either. So I go back to what we talked about early in the year. We were excited about Flacco, but we didn't focus on it. It's not that we forgot, but we didn't focus on the fact that Flacco's success came with a different offensive coordinator. And we saw what Flacco was in the
Yeah.
Stefanski. And then he moved from this year, from Stefanski's dink and dunk, don't throw interceptions offense, to Cincinnati's throw wherever you feel like it because we have 2 number 1 receivers. And the stats went through the roof.
Yep.
Like it was so blatant. I'm amazed he hasn't been pressed on that. Like I know he was asked once, and then he said, like, I don't want to talk about players on another team now.
Yeah.
We're focused on our guys. I'm surprised he wasn't pressed on that a little more, where they were like, no, this is not normal. You had a starting quarterback who could not throw for over 250 yards a game.
Yeah.
And then he went to another team. And that week, and repeatedly since that first week, he has thrown 275, 300, 350, 400-yard games. Where's the disconnect?
Yeah.
Because it's not Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's letting your QB be himself, right?
Yeah.
If he sees it downfield, take your shot. If you're going to like school him and discipline him, like, oh, you can't take deep shots, it's a recipe for disaster because they're always second guessing themselves. That's why a coach and a QB needs to coach and an offensive coordinator needs to put their QB and their players what they're good at. You can't morph somebody into something else. You cannot make somebody into a system quarterback. Then you have to get a system quarterback. And if they don't have the talent, then you're going to repent it later on because they're not going to be good enough. You got to put them in a successful spot. Like if there's a window downfield, take your chances. It's okay to make mistakes because from mistakes you learn. But if you're so scared to make mistakes, you're never going to learn. You're never going to take the next step in your life, right? So that's something I 100% agree with you. That's why I've seen Flacco. He's like, I'm a Pro Bowl quarterback who won Super Bowls. I think I can wing it downfield. You don't have to. And that's what you see with Jabbar Chase, T. Higgins. He sees them, he throws them, let them make a play. If it's not, tip off your hat to your. And that's exactly what happened against Shadour. He tried to make that play, but the DB made an amazing play. He had his hand between Leverdan's catching window and knocked the ball out, which means he made a better play. You tip your hat, go like, hey, great, good job. You outdid me. But there was a chance to actually a play to be made and have a game-winning drive. Yeah, he missed Bond, but again, if you don't take that chance, he would never see that Bond down there. He will always be looking for 5 yards and could get tackled short of first down. And then you can get stuffed, and then you lose that way. So I'm happy with taking a chance downfield. Again, as you grow, you become smart. Baker has become smart when to throw what, add some touch to it, and he has developed that part. And we got to encourage them to be who they are and then slowly scale it down. Okay, this is something you're getting too excited about. Maybe, you should not do this and do that. But if we put somebody in chains, they're not going to throw the ball. And if they're not going to throw the ball, you're not going to have success. You mentioned earlier about the defense, we're 15th in run. But that also is maybe because at the end of the game, the other teams have lead and our defense is tired and they have given up hope. They're like, you know what, do whatever, just keep running on us. So maybe they're raking yards that way. maybe our defense could be top five if our offense is capable of being in close games, right? Because I've seen our defense stepping up, having tackle, Zinger coming up, destroying the running back multiple times. So we have the good run defense also. So overall, our defense is amazing. It's just our offense is putting us in a place. So that's what annoys me to a certain extent is like we need to play complementary football as you have said, but we also have to take our chances so we can make positive impact on the team, not be negative, because the more negative you are, the more you bring your team down. Negative also always brings in uncertainty, right? You're always uncertain whether I'm going to complete that pass, and if you are told not to complete a tough pass, you're always not banking on yourself. You're not you know take that chance. Something I hope Tommy Rees offense I see. I don't care whether Stefanski stays with us. I feel like Shadour at the end of the year, again, this is something I could, bet on, may end up saving Stefanski's job if Shadour comes through with his quarterback.